and welcome to episode 17 of the Talent Intelligence podcast. I'm Claire Murray, Head of Marketing at Solutions Driven, and I'm joined today by Beatriz Luca De Tena, Global People Development and Senior Acquisition Leader at Almirall. That's quite the title there, Beatriz.
Not bad, right?
How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you, Claire?
I am doing very well. I mentioned before that I thought it was Wednesday today and it's actually Thursday. So one day closer to the weekend. So that's
Exactly.
So Beatriz, I wondered if you could tell me just a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Almirall.
Yeah, sure. So, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me, Claire. It's great to be here to talking to you today. Well, about myself. So I'm actually I'm from Spain. I'm originally from Seville, from the south of Spain, and I really have moved a lot around the country. Me and my family we moved to the north of Spain to Santander when I was 16. Then I've studied in Salamanca, which is in the center of Spain, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved to Madrid, where I lived 9 years, to the capital of the country. And there is where I started my professional career in HR.
Mm-hmm.
So I started pretty soon working in the pharma industry, actually, as an intern. And then I've had a chance to work in Madrid in Roche and in Johnson & Johnson.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like, I don't remember the name, the year, I think it was 2015, 2016, a summer break. I met my husband. He's from Barcelona. And that's why I live in Barcelona now. I've been living here since 2016. And that's also one of the reasons why I ended up working at Almirall. So Almirall is a pharmaceutical company. We're 1,800 employees. We have 15 affiliates. 14 of them are in Europe, one of them in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And we are focused on bringing, let's say, pharmaceutical products to our patients in medical dermatology.
Very interesting.
A little bit, a snippet.
It's funny. I've heard you say before that Almirall is a smaller company in the industry, but I don't think I'd realised you had that many people. So it's quite a large employee base for what is considered a smaller company.
Yeah, we can talk about mid-sized company, right? Not a biotech, not big pharma. We're there in between, but really competing with big pharma in of our as a therapeutic areas. So it's really exciting to work in such a size, because of course one person can really have a very big impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How did you get into the talent space? You'd said that you'd started off in pharma quite earlier on, but what was that attracted you to talent, HR, all of that, and how did you get into it? What was your journey?
Well, actually, I studied psychology, and when I started studying psychology, I probably was not thinking about working in HR. But I actually, while I was studying, I also worked in several places. And one of the places I worked in, it was a customer, what's the word? Sorry, customer service. There I went through the whole recruitment process, and I did a group dynamic, and then I actually was hired and became quite close with our HR partner. She was also a young girl, and we kind of connected, and she also studied psychology, so she shared with me her journey, and I learned from the job, and I found it very interesting. So I decided to focus on HR in my last years in university. And there is where I started my first internship in Inditex, actually, doing a lot of recruitment for people in the shops, for Zara and all the Inditex shops. And I fell in love with it, and until today, and I expect to be working in HR for many years.
Good. That's funny. Quite a lot of our team have had psychology degrees as well, or even if they haven't, they've as part of their recruitment career went and done a psychology course because totally ties in, doesn't it? And so
It
much of it is psychological. Yeah.
It is, yeah, it's super linked, and actually many of the people in my team and in Almirall's HR team, I would say probably like 70% have studied psychology.
Wow.
So, we can get a bit intense sometimes with some conversations, but yeah, overall, many people here.
I don't know if you have ever had a conversation with our COO, Walter. He does a lot of psychometric testing for candidates, and I'm sure that you two would get on very well because he gets very into that and very intense on the psychology of it. So yeah, we'll need to introduce you to.
Yeah, of course, that would be great.
So the reason that I had came across you and your work was because you joined our HR and TA Leaders Forum recently as one of our panelists. And it was like a great session. I think it was the most people came that have ever came. There was like 90 on at one point. So obviously a busy session. What was your experience of the forum? Did you take anything from that?
I think it was very interesting to hear from colleagues from different parts of the world and see that we're all experiencing the same situation, right? All around, and really hear from colleagues, everyone having the same struggles, going through very similar situations, and really seeing how companies are trying to innovate and be able to keep up with all the changes that are happening right now in the labor market. So no, I really enjoyed it. I also really enjoyed the format of the meeting.
Yeah, it was really good, and I think that's something that's just coming up a lot just now. Like a lot of talent teams scaled back, or people are working from home, and I think a lot of people in talent just feel quite isolated as well. So it's nice to come on and speak to or hear from like 80 other people in the same situation as you, and just know that the problems that you're facing are not just you problems, it's the market.
Yeah. And I think it's also positive because really it's like, well, the companies need to see how they can adapt and really answer to the needs of the talent if they really want to stay attractive and be able to attract the talent that they need. They need to acknowledge that that's the situation that the world is on right now, and they need to adapt, and some of them need to step up their game.
Very true. Yeah, it's very much an industry where you need to be ahead of the curve all the time, and you can't be scared of trying new things and keeping on top of it.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that I found most interesting that you were talking about in the forum was attracting candidates through employer branding as a medium-sized pharmaceutical company. How is it that you use Almirall's branding to attract candidates and compete with those bigger companies?
I think we are doing many things, but we still have a long journey ahead of us, because, as you said, we're a mid-sized organization, very well known in Spain because this is where our headquarter is, and long tradition of the company here. So it's a well-known company in Spain, but not so well known in other countries. So usually our biggest challenge is when we need to attract talent in other countries, or we need to bring people from all over the world into our HQ in Barcelona. So, of course, we do the basics that everyone does. We very recently, last year, we updated our career site to make it a lot more friendly, with more information, with employees' testimonies.
Yeah.
So people can really get a little bit of a feel of what it is to work for Almirall, not only what the company says, but also what our employees say.
Yeah.
So the people talk about their experience going through the recruitment process. Some of them have relocated to come here, so they also talk about how they lived that whole relocation, and also how they like working for the company. Of course, we have a very, we work very closely with our external communication team to align messages, to work on LinkedIn, to really be able to share a broader vision of the company, and talk about everything that we do, how we innovate, how we help our patients, messages from our leadership team, from our CEO. So try to really build this narrative so people get to know the company, not only from a professional side of things, but also a little bit more on what's the culture, how are the people working here, and so that I think this is one of the things that can make a little bit of a difference. And one of the main reasons that we are able to attract talent from bigger corporations is this, right? Because we're not as big, you are able to make a bigger impact. You're able to be part of big decisions, big projects, and you really feel how your job, your day-to-day job, can impact not only the company but also the lives of patients. And I think that's really strong. But as I said, there's a lot to come. We're actually working on building a cross-functional employer branding team.
Nice.
Where we have HR, but we also have communication. We also have someone from marketing. So we all, align messages, work together, and also innovate more, because in talent acquisition, in HR, we're not experts in marketing, communication. So that's something that we're working on. And also something quite interesting that we've done recently is working together with our leadership team in R&D. We've done 2 workshops with them to think all together in innovative ways to attract talent in R&D. So really working very closely with the business. So first, we can also share with them what's happening in the market and what are some of the challenges that we're facing to attract this kind of talent, so that together we can think about different ways where are we not looking, where other places we need to look for people, where do we need to be, what forums, different strategies. And now we're actually working on strategy specifically for this niche of talent, for R&D scientists.
Nice. It sounds like there's a lot of outside the box thinking coming up.
We're trying.
Keep on top of it. Yeah.
It's fun. And the company is really open for to this, because we see that we need to think differently, because people are thinking differently already.
100%. I was actually doing our career site. Now, you'd think that as a recruitment company, we would have an amazing career site, but it wasn't that good before. So I was recently redoing it, and just like, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So I was just looking at loads of different people's career sites to see what they were doing well. And the amount of businesses that don't have like the voice of the employee, or, it's just, we do this and we do that. And it's like, well, how do we know that without someone saying that is what, it's that you need to have testimonials to build trust with the candidate as well.
Yeah, that's true. And I think also that's a little bit outside of employer branding, but within a recruitment process, we see that the more people a candidate gets to meet, not thinking so much about structured interviews, but really getting a chance to have touch points with different people within the organization, is one of the things that we see that has a good impact in candidate engagement. Because then, you not only listening to HR, which of course you like to listen to HR, but you also want to hear other people's opinions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We found exactly the same thing. So I completely agree with you there. So you kind of touched on candidate engagement there, but candidate behavior has just changed quite a lot over the last couple of years, and I think that's true of every industry and every kind of role. You'd said that you'd experienced candidate behavior changing within your industry. Can you tell me a little bit about how that candidate behavior's changed?
Of course. I mean, we've all gone through this pandemic, and it has made a lot of people rethink their lives.
Yeah.
Right? And really put into a balance what is important, what isn't, what are my priorities in life, what do I want to achieve in life.
Yeah.
Right? We've seen the Great Resignation. We've seen many things happening and affecting the market after COVID. And of course, everyone has worked remotely, something that many companies had never done before. Like, for example, in Almirall's case, in HQ, we didn't even have one day of working from home a week.
Yeah.
And then everyone had to work from home, and companies have not collapsed. Right?
No.
I mean, people have worked, things have moved forward. And then you've had people who have really enjoyed working from home, and then you have people who have hated it. Like me, for example, I didn't like working from home every day of the week. I did not enjoy it. I wanted to be back at the office. I wanted to be with my team. I wanted to be closer to my colleagues. But then some other people were like, I don't want to go back to the office.
Ever. Yeah. People are like, I'll happily never come in again.
Exactly. So you have this very different views on it. But I would say that the common ingredient now in most candidates and how their behavior is changing is that they've become a lot more demanding. It's not anymore that the company is looking for someone and you need to prove that you are the right candidate. It's you also need to prove to me that you are the right company.
Yeah.
So that dynamic has it changed before COVID, but I think that it's a lot clearer now. So candidates ask a lot more questions from the beginning, and they want to know what you offer as a company. They want to know what is the company culture. They want to know how would be my colleagues, how is the hiring manager. They want to understand a lot more what the company offers before making a decision.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. And I think many companies are really adapting to it, but some hiring managers still can struggle a little bit with it, because it's like, but I had an interview with this candidate and they didn't seem motivated. And it was like, because your role was to motivate them.
Yeah, it's a two-way selling process just now, isn't it? Yeah.
I agree. So I think that's one of the key changes. So you see people again asking a lot more questions than they used to, and usually from maybe first conversation, maybe second, asking about flexibility, asking about benefits, asking about holidays, about schedule. So really that's changed, because when I started recruitment, I mean, a candidate who would ask this in the first call would be rejected.
Yeah, they're too demanding.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not every company, but it was quite highly possible that you would be rejected if you asked this in the first conversation.
Yeah. And it makes sense that candidates are doing that now, because like they've got to look after themselves. And if a company's not right for the candidate, then in the long run, it's bad for both the company and the candidate, you know? So,
Exactly. You're going to hire someone who's not going to be happy,
yeah.
who's not going to adapt well. So it's a lot about managing expectations, right? And making sure that you as a candidate have all the information that you need, and us as a company also. And then we all need to make decisions, right? Is this the right company for you? And is this the right candidate for you? Is this the right person for you?
Very much a two-way street.
Yeah.
Although candidates are we've noticed that candidates are dropping out of the hiring process like faster than ever before. And at every single stage of the process. Do you know, it used to be that people would either drop off at the first stage or at the last stage, but now it's like continual through the whole process. Have you experienced that?
I mean, it has increased. It's not super high for us, but it's true that it has increased since COVID. But we still have more people who kind of drop off at earlier stages or the later stages, not so much in the middle. I think we're able to engage people and let them wanting to understand more and learn more from the company. But it has increased a little bit. Engagement is a bit more difficult, but I do think that we've also put quite early on strategies or to increase engagement of candidates.
Yeah, definitely. It's something we keep saying to our clients is you need to move faster because people are dropping out because things aren't moving fast enough. And if a candidate's in one process, they're usually in multiple processes. You know, if they think if they're thinking about leaving a job or they're probably talking to a few people, and if you don't move fast enough, someone else will. So I guess that's part of what's causing it. Can you tell me a little bit about the strategies that you've put in to stop this from happening?
One is constant communication. Communicate as much as you can with your candidates. Don't leave them waiting for an answer for 3 weeks. I mean, you're gonna lose them. So even if you don't have news, just send a quick email saying, we are still interested. Are you still interested? Are you in any other processes? Is there anything I can do? Just keep in touch with your candidates. I think is key. I think also, as I said, for a candidate to be able to have different touch points with different people throughout the process, although it can slow things down, it's true, it can slow things down, but also it helps the person understand what you're offering and how the company is a lot better. And something that I think we're doing very well is first make sure that your key messages are aligned. You cannot be saying something very different to what the hiring manager is saying and what whoever participates in the process is saying. That's super important for a candidate to see that everyone is saying the same things from their perspective. And what I tell hiring managers, and I think they do very well, is to be authentic, to be genuine, to be transparent. Don't sell things that are not true. Just tell the truth and what we are and what we aren't and what our strengths and what aren't, so that people have realistic expectations throughout the process, so that if they finally join the company, of course you need to be in the company to really leave it, but so that you don't join the company and say, oh, this is very different to what I was told. That's a huge mistake. And
then I'm not going to stick around because this isn't what I was sold in the first place.
Exactly. Yeah.
Have you also been experiencing that some of this dropout has come from counter offers? Have you been experiencing that on the candidate side?
Yes. Yes, it has increased, and we're actually reporting how many people receive a counter offer. and it's quite interesting because, well, it also depends on the country. Some countries have always, it's been more common to use this practice of a counter offer. Some others is not that common. But it's interesting in two ways. First, we see that there are candidates that maybe they have realized, there's people who have realized this, and they use this as a strategy to get a pay increase. So they start a recruitment process, they might like it, they might leave, but many times it's like, I want to get a higher salary, but I want to stay where I am. And they use this as a strategy. It happens. But also, as there is a war for talent, it's really hard to have the talent that you need. If you have a high potential, like a key talent of the organization leaving, the companies are much more likely to say, is it money? Because if it's money, we can do something about it. Yeah, and we've even experienced people who not only have been offered more money, but they have been offered a new project. So it's
development.
So it's increased. It's not super high, but it has increased.
I was in the office yesterday, and I was sitting next to one of our team, and she was talking to a candidate on the phone on behalf of a client, and she came off the phone and was like, that person just wants a counter offer. Like, I know they're not going to move right now. They just want to know how much they can be offered for this role and then go back to their job. So
yeah.
What are you doing in Almirall to mitigate your own people leaving?
To keep our talent.
Yeah, to keep your own talent.
So we do many things, right, to for talent retention. One of the, maybe what we can start with is that we used to do every 2 years, we used to do an engagement survey to see how people were feeling. Are they happy? Are they not? And if not, what's happening? Why they're not happy? And what can we do in order to change that, right? But now we are doing it a lot more often. We have a new tool that allows us to, just send very quick, simple surveys that you can answer in 5 to 10 minutes, so that we can really test the temperature of specific things in the organization, and also see how is the impact of things that we're doing what we expected or not, right? So we're talking to the organization as a whole a lot more than we used to, and the goal is to continue this practice. And of course, we have our people and cultural business partners who are the ones who work very closely with the business. And of course, if they identify any situation, they will also share with the rest of the team, so we can put plans in action if necessary. That's a little bit, it can be considered a bit reactive. But we also, of course, we do every year, we do our talent review process, where we it's a bottom-up process where leaders identify their talents and really share with their area and the people and culture team who are the key talents, what is their profile, what are they doing to help them grow. And one of the things that we also identify is risk of loss. So we kind of force leaders to have these conversations with their people to address whether I have someone in my team that I don't want to lose, and I might lose because they're not motivated, because they're not happy for any reason. So in these people, of course, who are considered talents, then we can do ad hoc specific action plans to make sure that we are retaining them. And then also we think about many different ways where we can help them, like make them, or facilitate that they stay, for example, developing development programs or improving our learning offering, or by helping them or motivating them to participate in internal recruitment processes, so they can be part of a different team. So there are different strategies that we put in place. Then of course recently, for example, we have done a big change in terms of flexibility, because we knew that this was one of the things that people were asking for. So we have increased the number of days that you can work from home. We have a much more flexible schedule, more flexible holidays. So little by little implementing these changes that also let our employees see that we are listening, and that we want them to be happy at the company. And from that to we're doing many things right now.
You're like, there's actually two. This is too broad a question for me.
It was like, okay, let me see how can I put this quickly, because there are many things that we do, but still, I mean, people will leave, of course. It's an open market, and we were talking about this before, right? Nowadays it's not very common to have someone who spends their whole career in the same company. It's not common. So I mean, you are going to lose talent, but at least try to retain as much as you can, and make everyone as happy as you can, as HR.
Absolutely. Like, all of that feeds into internal mobility quite well. How important is internal mobility in Almirall, and how do you kind of prepare your team for the next step?
So it's very important, for sure, right? And we want to make sure that we are developing our employees. So we have different ways to make that happen. One of them, as I said, is through the talent review and succession planning process. So part of this process is to identify which are the key roles within the different functions, and then establish the succession planning for that role, right? So which people are nearly ready to take on that position, which people could maybe take it in 1 to 3 years, and which people could take it in 3 to 5 years, right? So that's the exercise that we do. And then what we make sure is that leaders put in place development plans for these people who are in the succession planning, so that they can come closer and closer to these roles. And for example, for those key roles where we don't have anyone in our teams who are in the succession planning is nearly nobody there, or maybe just one people in 3 to 5, then it's usually something that we take into consideration when we are recruiting. And if we are recruiting for this team, we need to take into account that we need people to fill in this succession plan. Right? That's one thing. Then also we have recruitment processes. So all of the positions, all of the positions that we have, we post them internally. So whenever we have an internal candidate, we're going to prioritize them. Doesn't mean that they will 100% get the role. I mean, you need to have the profile, the skills, but we're always going to interview them. We're always going to assess them as candidates. And I would say in the roles that we get internal candidates, I can say that around 85%.
Wow.
We hire the internal, like we give the opportunity to the internal person. And internal also means people who are contractors, people who have a temporary contract.
It's not just full-time permanent employees.
Yeah, exactly. So all of them are taken into account. So really, we try to help our people develop and give them these opportunities. And also, it's a very interesting development situation for the candidates who apply and at the end are not hired, because they go through this process, they have their interviews, they get to meet different people, and we also always give them feedback on how, if, for example, if we do an assessment center, which happens for all managerial roles, then you have a feedback session when we explain what you did well, what you didn't, and that we link it to your development plan. so that you can work on those areas that were identified as, not as strong.
And if they don't get, so if they go for a position and they don't get hired that time, right? And you give them the development plan, they go away and work on it. Do most of them succeed the next time that they apply then?
I don't have like a number. I wish I
Sorry,
did.
I put you on the spot there.
No, it's okay. It's okay. There are many cases of people who have applied, they didn't get the job, they came back maybe a year later, a couple of years later, to the same role or a different one, and they have succeeded. And many times you also need to make the decision. I mean, this person has applied and has gone through more than one internal recruitment process. Do we want to keep the person or not? Because if the answer is yes, then you need to give the people the chance, because otherwise they will leave.
And as well, there's nothing more demotivating than not getting something that you go for and not knowing why. So the fact that you give that feedback's obviously really positive, and I guess you're right. If you go for it again the second time, then either feedback or no feedback, you're still going to kind of take that to heart and be like, well, maybe this isn't the place for me. Yeah.
I mean, it can. I'm not saying that it can happen. It's a tough decision to make, for sure. And sometimes for some roles, you need a very specific skill set that maybe someone internally doesn't have. But as I said, we do try to give the chance. And like in my case, I started as a recruiter, and now I'm leading like global talent acquisition and learning and development. So I've had my chance to grow and to go through an internal recruitment process and to get a higher responsibility.
Yeah. I know. It's a little bit like, I think Kate from Actana, who was also on the panel from you, she spoke before about like, it's all about making sure that the line managers are also willing to let people go, because so many managers are like, but yeah, that person has applied for another role, but I don't want to lose them from my department. And it's balancing up that, keeping the managers happy and keeping the employees happy as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's of course, it's absolutely very, very important. I mean, the way that we have like our policy, what our policy states is that if you apply for an internal role, you need to inform your manager. But it's not like, you need your manager to validate that you're applying for a role.
Just need to let them know.
Yeah, you need to let them know, because it's not, to be very honest, in my experience, it can happen that a leader say, I mean, it's a loss for my department because this person is amazing, but not people don't really go like, I don't want this person to leave the department right now. I need them. It doesn't really happen, because also many of our leaders have promoted. They have been promoted internally, they have grown, they have had the chance to have different positions within the company, so they are also going to help their people,
Absolutely. It all sounds like it stems from your fantastic culture at Almirall. So
yeah, well, it's a great place really to work, and it's a company that is constantly changing, super dynamic, and of course with its strengths and improvement areas as any other company. But overall, I would say that we really invest a lot of time and effort in our people, and try to develop our people and retain our talent.
Definitely seems that way. Beatriz, that has us come to the end of our questions for today. I'd just like to say thanks so much for coming on. Between this and the HR Leadership Forum, I've taken a lot from what you've had to say. So yeah, really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Claire. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Bye-bye.
Bye.